Howdy, howdy. Ben Wheeler here. Sadly, um, Jason couldn't make it in time, but I'll certainly chat with whoever comes in here, and we're just going to talk about a bunch of stuff, just to ooh, just to make things friendly and to sort of look over the year behind us and the year ahead to what we're doing. The biggest thing, of course, is whatever John C. Wright and other things are. Let's see here. Let's see. There we go. Just summoning up some people to see if they want to join in on the live stream. So overall, it's been a pretty great year last year. Honestly, I enjoyed a lot, and a lot of things happened for me in the good way. Uh, Better job, more writing, less writing, as the writer's ups and downs go on, and well, just normal
Good
stuff.
evening.
David Howquest, how good of you to join us, or me
Happy to
specifically.
pop in.
So I was just talking about the year behind us and how it was a
hmm
pretty good year overall for Superversive Press. We published a
hmm
lot of books. We went to Dragon Con and sold a lot of books, and you yourself published a book. How's that going?
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. The second book of the trilogy for the Singularity Crisis should be coming out this month. Book 3 should be the month after that. So I hope not to keep people waiting too long.
I get you. What was the name of the second book again?
The second book is State of Terra, where Brant finds you can't always go home again.
Outstanding. And it'll come out, let's see here, January 13th, 2020.
There you
This
go.
very year. And
hmm
I'll throw a link up into the
Well,
chat.
the whole trilogy should be out in this year, so people have a chance to get into this and read through it fairly quickly.
Absolutely. Uh, it's a pretty good series. I enjoyed Hard Moon and everything else like that. And of
Great.
course, I formatted it, so I'm a little biased. So,
hmm
so beyond the uh, Singularity Crisis trilogy, what are you working on now?
Well, I've got a couple of projects I'm considering. One is there's a potential, not exactly a sequel, but almost a sequel to it. It would be different characters, but in the same world, where
Mm-hmm.
it would take the part of basically some of the warriors from Jupiter and their perspective on some of the things that come after what goes on in this trilogy. Of course, if I get too much into it, I'll spoil a whole bunch of things.
Oh, I
Another
don't mind.
thing that's already been submitted for review, reading, and marking up is something called Farships. And it's a pretty big deviation from this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a taunt, fast paced action thriller, this is more something along the lines of, which where Hard Moon is basically a sci-fi pulp thriller, fast-paced, action-oriented. This is more like the Farships is more like a Silver Age kind of colonization.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, taking as much as we know about physics and engineering of the future as we do at the time, minus any crazy like Star Trek technology or anything like that, and seriously looking at the colonization of other worlds, what it would actually take, how long it would take,
Mm-hmm.
the generations of people as they go out. And if that turns out to be a success, then that could be a series which is basically mankind slowly going out into the galaxy.
I always love those series because you can do so much with them, aliens or non-aliens, new planets, and you can always set things up for specific challenges. That thrill and excite every time you put out a new book.
Yep, it's been fun writing the first one, so we've got a whole bunch we can do with that if it works out.
Let's hope so. I look forward to formatting it when it comes out. I suppose the big thing that we're all looking forward to is the Star Quest books coming out.
Oh yes,
Oh yes.
John Wright is doing space opera again.
Oh yes. Fantastic. That's like we're all big fans of John C. Wright here. The man really
Mm-hmm.
knows how to write a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been doing the Tears of Elf. No, oh my goodness, it's me. The Swan Knight's son. Uh,
Uh-huh.
mentally, I'm in the wrong headspace. The Swan Knight's son, as well
Mm-hmm.
as uh, uh, what else was he doing? The Iron Chamber of Memory and a few other things for Castalia
Oh,
House. But he's left Castalia House due to them
right.
switching off to comic books, and he's joined Superversive and Richard Palini's
Mm-hmm.
Tempest
Mm-hmm.
Publishing and a few other things. Because he is a professional in all the right
Mm-hmm.
ways.
Right. So I've worked with John a little bit when we were doing Planetary Mercury and when we were launching the magazine earlier. And he's always been a
Mm-hmm.
pleasure, absolute pleasure to work with.
Oh yeah.
Um, so yes, I certainly agree. He is a professional author, and he's not only gifted author. He's the guy like you know what you're doing with that.
Oh
I didn't get any of the. It was kind of funny when I was doing editing. A lot of times I get like, "No, you're making fun of my baby" or something like that. Whenever
yeah.
anything was off with the book, and you just never want to do that when you're a writer. Um, and so
hmm
he'd not only be like where I didn't have to wait a long time for some kind of reply or anything. So with the book in there, he basically said, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll write a piece for this." I think because Jaji basically talked him into it. She can talk anyone into anything, and
hmm
it was less than a week, and it was like almost flawless. And it was almost a novella, and I'm like, okay, I can launch the book on this alone.
That's fantastic. I'm glad that Richard's picking up the Planetary series.
Yes,
Uh, that was such a drain on resources, but it's like it's in a good home,
some
especially with their
amazing things.
snazzy new
Uh,
covers. Ooh.
I'm very biased to loving books one and two of Planetary, which is Venus and Mercury.
hmm
Three's probably going to get an editorial remake, especially since the original editor is being replaced with someone else by Polini's staff. So like they're going to go over it some.
Willingly, there's no
Yeah.
drama there. In case
Oh, that's good.
yeah, it was
Drama's no fun, but
yeah. He had no what is it? No time for it because John Delaroz is a busy man. That guy's
okay.
always up to something.
But I'm sure it's going to be getting some redoing there, and then the rest of them should be coming out under there. And so I'm eagerly looking forward to some of the other ones. The only thing
hmm
that makes me kind of sad is we're not going to have. Well, the new art's gorgeous for these things. I've seen some of the new covers for them.
hmm
It's not. I'm just gotta admit, I do love Lee's old art with that thing. It had a kind of a playful style.
It did. He's pretty good. Um, yeah, I wish I had something that would really fit his style, but most of the time I go with Brian Silverbacks or I'll try Paul Maitland much later on when I write something up.
Didn't he do Tears of Elfline cover for you?
No, that was somebody who will remain anonymous.
Oh, okay. Because it had that. It had that kind of like it's a great cover, but
Yeah.
I saw the kind of like semi-playful, semi-serious, kind of cartoonish. But like, it's just the right cover because you look at it and at
hmm
first you're like, oh, it's like a cartoon. It's going to be, and then you like look closer and there's like the eyes behind them in the forest,
hmm
and the sense of menace and foreboding kind of seeps in the longer you look at it. ago.
It's
I thought it captured it.
yeah. I just wish it came out sooner than the year it took. Uh,
Hmm.
which is all right. It's why it's important to always work with professionals and set time limits for people, because otherwise you just never know. You never know what you're gonna get stuck with, and then
Mm-hmm.
you kind of have to live with it. Because
Oh,
honestly, like I talk a big game about being mean, but I don't actually want to be mean all the time.
you're a nice guy, Ben. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. And if they
Mm,
do, crush them.
exactly.
Um, but
Make an example of them.
but I basically say, um, it kind of again, it does kind of go back to the professional thing. Like the professional versus amateur thing isn't a matter of whether someone's skilled so much. It's a matter of whether they're responsible with it. They do what
Hmm.
they say they're going to do. They comport themselves in a mature manner. All that kind of stuff. Because I've met back when I did my first book that is never going to be done because two of the core items on it had already been done by somebody else in parallel. I was basically considering, like, I found an artist and I was like, I'm not going to mention the name because I've got good and bad things to say about her, but I love the art. And I was like, this is fantastic. You should get your things out, publish, trying to encourage her first. And then, like, when I actually had something to publish, was going to offer to pay her for the covers. And the whole thing was like, no, I can't do that. Don't tell me it's good. It's horrible. Da da da. And I'll never get into this. I was like all of this stuff. And so, like, I felt sorry for her, but I wasn't going to do business with someone under those circumstances. You see what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
It's why guys like Brian Silverbacks are precious like gold, because they know how to do business.
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it is business. It is art. It's also art. And we also have kind of like a higher calling
Hmm.
with this, but it's also a business. And there needs to be some level of responsibility with it or it doesn't work.
Yep. And it's always a good lesson to learn without like going into trouble. Like at the end of the year, I basically learned a similar lesson when my behavior wasn't. It was very professional, but I would say it was like the heartless professional stage of things. When actuality, they needed me to be a bit more friendly and outgoing. And it's like it's one of those things. If you don't ever have to learn the lesson and you can do it naturally, it's great. But if you do have to learn the lesson, you grow from it. You turn it from a weakness into a
Mm-hmm.
strength. And I actually have to meet with that boss on Monday for a unrelated. What is it? A comp plan. Compensation plan for
You get it.
various things. And it's like, it's one of those things. It's like, how you doing? I'm doing great.
But
Uh,
on to writing, or we can discuss kind of um, leadership in the abstract,
yeah,
in the perspective of art and how it's written. Like,
absolutely.
but
Well, what I'm saying is it's all part of it. Like if I'm working with Jason, the publisher, to format more books,
mm-hmm,
and it's like I got a lot of books formatted, but
mm-hmm.
I forgot to put in a title page for one
Oh
of the
my,
books, and it's like it's still all there. You're not missing any content, but it's and other things. It's like so we're going to be working together to get a quality assurance document for me to make sure I don't forget, credits or something like that. It's always we want to end the well, I basically ended the year learning new things about writing and about the business of writing, which I appreciate.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, editing and in formatting and any of this kind of stuff is always was an interesting experience. I didn't ever do the formatting part, but the whole editorial part was a very interesting journey to
Yeah.
kind of see what the other side has to go through. And it gave me a whole new appreciation of be nice to your editor.
It's like you're looking over. It's like, hello, Willie Ram. It's like you're like, well, I don't know if I want to take this out. Take it. Take it out. Do it. But my editors, son, I don't know. It's like, listen, you've paying me for my advice. Please. It doesn't need the song and dance routine with characters, popping out of the woodwork or whatever, whatever nonsense you've got in there.
Yeah.
Someday I dream of having an editor say I have one dance routine too many. It's that dream.
It's going to be like an Indian movie or something.
Right. All right, Ben. The Indians do it right with a movie, but you doing it in writing isn't really there. But I've got the music bars right there. I learned how to write music. Yes, but they still can't hear it unless they've got like a piano while they're reading it. Oh, okay. All right. I see what you're saying. Hmm.
Oh,
Yep. Well, it's pretty cool. It's a lot. Like over the year, I do plan on upping my writing content. Um, you know, it's it's gonna be a lot of kind of, how do I want to put this? Like I don't really feel the call yet to become one of those 20 books to 50,000 writers. Just
okay.
because like that stuff, I dig it. I dig it a lot, and I know it's kind of more of a rhetoric thing than an actual thing. But you know, uh, I do want to produce much more than I have been.
Okay. I'm sure you can. Like I've seen how well things come out when you're producing, and I know life varies. The only thing I'd say to worry about from like what the other side looks like, at least from the editor's thing, is uh the only thing I didn't like. I wouldn't be like if people weren't producing, I didn't get upset one way or the other. It's just what would bother me would be here's this thing coming in and then it doesn't come in. And
Mm-hmm.
because whoever's on the other side is expecting to get something put out, they're going to have to get together the artists, they're going to have to get together, especially when you get senior editors, which was above me. But there's all these other things. It's like this huge team, including you, Ben, that
Mm-hmm.
came together to help me put together the Singularity Crisis. Even though I wrote the words, the actual getting this thing out in the way it is, I don't know if I could have done it on my own. Certainly not in the time I had it come out, or as nice. We got the beautiful covers from Corey McCleary. We've got the fantastic page setting from you. We've got
Mm-hmm.
Zvitsky, super editor, who looked over it and then put together the song. Corey's dad
Mm-hmm.
actually sang it. I mean, so there's this whole team that helps do it. And so, to the authors out there, and hopefully the authors of the future that might be listening, when you agree to put something out, there's this whole team that's waiting for you. You're kind of like the star player, so
Mm,
you don't want to let your team down.
absolutely. What's great is talking with like other editors like Chris Rocchio and others. Like kind of what they're looking for and what they're trying to do. It's like everyone's like always rooting for you. Like nobody's hating you secretly in your hearts or anything like that. At least current year
I mean,
plus 5 treating you well.
there could be some messed up places that work that way, but
Yeah,
I haven't
sure.
seen any of that here.
That's true. How's the current year plus 5 treating y'all?
Hmm.
I'm not sure, really. Plus 5 in 5 years. In 5 years, ooh, I don't know. There's so many things that could happen. Probably waiting for Donald Trump Jr. to get elected. Probably.
uh,
All right, I got
where's
the
the
spell
link? I was
take.
going to read the comments if I could.
Yeah, I put it in your Discord chat.
Oh, all
But
right.
I
Let me
started
find.
the year with a spit take. We're good.
Where are we?
I've peaked already.
Why am I not finding my link? If you could
Uh,
link it again under,
yeah, sure.
it'd help a whole lot. Oh, there it is. It's the one with
Yeah,
the possum in it, of course.
yeah, exactly. Possums.
Who else would do this?
Who else would who would do this?
Alrighty. Let's see what comments we've got rolling at the moment. Alright. May May went whoosh. I have no idea what that means, but sure thing.
It's all right. Memes have evolved so quickly and so fast. It's like, like someone was joking and they were joking, but they weren't joking. That historians 100 years later are going to be picking through our memes to try and figure out what happened.
They're all gonna be like, "What is yeet?"
What is this? It's an ancient dialect. Back
The
before
language changed 5 times in 20 years.
the generations came faster and faster, and everything just went strange. Willie Ram. The name of my desk guest right now is David Halquist. I've invited a few other people, but if they show up, it's fine. If they don't, that's fine. I'm just kind of rambling on because I want to make sure I start the first Sunday of the year with a live stream, and it's going pretty all right. Right now, just sort of talking about craft of writing. The book I'm working on, I'm focusing on is Cybergothic, and I'm gonna have to really rewrite this thing because like what did you call it? It's an onyx age because it's not golden.
Right.
Like no one's really happy. Everyone's like whatever, but they're immortal and they're going to have to last forever until all matter breaks down or whatever.
And with that comes ultimate ennui.
Ultimate ennui. Ultimate. So a little bit of a distraction. There's this character in the hit radio show um, Night Vale that's called
Mm-hmm.
Barks Ennui, and I don't know why, but that name is so funny. And he's basically like a continuum law dog, and he's following this guy around because he saved his girlfriend in another universe, and she has to die or go back, and he's struggling with it. Uh, but it's Barks Ennui, a cartoon dog in a trench coat. Uh,
That's about as good as Spade Slick.
right, and it's
Uh,
eh, I
Jack
like
Noir.
I was like I was driving these guys to Kansas City and like I was laughing for a full 15 minutes. They were starting to get worried about me. Uh but it's the ultimate ennui, you're waiting till the end of the universe and everything's just a little bit absurd and no one knows what they want or anything like that.
I
Like
don't know what this is.
gospel.
Gospel of Trash Tier Isekai.
Have you been saved from the tyranny of God's good storytelling? Woolly Ram. Like I I'm
I
going
think
to
Ben's gonna
die
have to
someday.
handle this one. He
Yeah.
knows more anime than I do.
Wooly, I come from the perspective of I'm going to die someday. I don't want to I don't want to spend it trash. Like, I'm trying to make myself healthy, but I'm due for a heart attack in like 5 years. So like,
Ah,
like what if I'm watching some trash tier isekai? Because why not? And all of a sudden like I get up, walk down the stairs and I just have a heart attack and fall down dead. And then all of a
you're like,
sudden
I could have been watching good anime.
and it's like all of a sudden, my browser history isn't deleted. There's some sort of trash anime on there, and it's like, of course, going to be stuck on some image where like somebody's losing their shirt over something stupid.
He could have been watching Demon Hunter,
I could have been
right?
watching Demon Hunter. I could have been watching anything, but no. I have a heart attack and die while Trash Tier Isekai is playing on my computer. And it's one of the things, back to what I was talking about, one of the things I
Hmm.
was thinking about is, like, how much rewriting I'm gonna have to do just to make the universe fit better. Like, it's going to be people who, like, created these immortal societies just to make life interesting. Like, one person's literally live streaming everything she does. Like, censoring bits, but, like, like she's got the cameras behind her eyes because everyone has, immortal metal bodies, and like just streaming it into the cosmos. Like, how does that affect people? Like, no one noticed except for one dude who was like checking everyone's communications to see who was like the spy. And he's like, yeah, she's been live streaming everything. Like, and I'm even gonna work it into a plot point later where he logs onto her live stream while she's being kidnapped to try and find where his love interest is. Uh, like it's going to be a fairly absurd situation. Originally, I thought I was gonna make it gothic and serious, but then I realized in
Hmm.
reality they would like to pretend to be serious, but everyone's actually going to be absurd as all get out.
Well, I mean, it's going to be crazy town after a bit.
Absolutely.
You're just going to have lots of escapism. I'm looking forward to reading it. It's a different take on it. Usually, like, it's been done in jest by Douglas Adams and a few others, and but very few people have actually tackled this subject even halfway seriously. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. The bits I've heard sound amazing. Have you told anyone the byline for it yet, or is that something you want to wait to spring on people?
Willie Ram says women would stream everything if they could. You're right. Uh, it's in a deathless society, somebody's committing murder.
Right. I
It's
want to read it so
fantastic.
much.
But it's not even like a detective thing. Like, he kills his assailant and then he goes to try and pick out information about it, and he's slowly putting pieces together while he goes after the most obvious villains and tries to solve his father's death as well as um who killed him in the first place.
Right.
And
And think
this
about
mm,
the shock that would be in something like that. Like today, we're fairly sanitized from this sort of thing, so it hits us hard. It hits us harder today than, say, someone from like the Middle Ages, where like half of like the kids would make it to adulthood if you're lucky. Okay, so you have this entirely different approach to things. So their approach to deprivation, danger, even things like stoicism, like, and then they have this sprung on them. It's going
yep,
to be an amazing character study
yep,
because as weird as your like bizarre like post-humans are going to be, they're still people.
yeah.
They're dealing with a terrible shock and a nightmare in their life, and
And it's
I'm curious to see how they deal with it.
like some people are just going to be like the main character used to be a mercenary in some like war torn part of the cosmos that they're fighting over bare scraps. So he's he's fairly okay with it. But what's going to happen is that people are just going to look at him and it's like, so I his mind was uploaded to seventh heaven, to Cyberheaven. Who cares? It's like, no, but people, there are murders happening. Whoa, people do murder? Like, I can, like, what's the
Why would anyone do that?
why would
Nobody
anyone
dies anymore. No, you're
murder?
not understanding. He died. You mean his persona died in the game? No. It's like even trying to explain it to somebody. Because think about it, like we've lost friends. I'm
Hmm.
sure all of us have. So then the shock and the horror and the monstrosity of it, the sheer evil wrongness of it, and now these people have never even had that,
Right,
and it happens. Like,
right.
how do they deal with that?
Like, there hasn't even been a huge war in like 100 years. It's like,
Maybe the last 100 years they had a bar fight.
yeah, exactly. Like some places, far away where people are still uncivilized. Maybe I hear that they're fighting. People practice martial arts, to be cool or something like that. but no one really ever believes anyone would murder anyone else over it, and that even if they died, who
Well, with
cares?
all this kind of technology, they probably are really hard to get rid of.
Hmm.
So, I mean, think about it. What
Exactly.
you're going to do if you don't have continual violence, you'll have continual exploitation of technology for life extension. So, I don't want you to spoil anything, but what I understand, it's a pretty rugged future there. And so, you
Hmm.
know,
And
what I've heard so far definitely sounds like something I want to read in the worst way. So,
oh yeah,
my
and
kind of book, Ben.
oh yeah. And it's something I kind of have to work on more because it's far more ambitious than whatever I've written before, which have always been not pedestrian or anything like that, not too small, but it's more ambitious. It's a bigger idea, and it's not, you can't just sum it up with Arabian Nights on Mars or seven kids go into the forest to deal with their emotional problems. What's the
Mm-hmm.
only actually thinking of Tears of Elfland, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this girl and I are talking, and she's basically uh, Cynthia, and it's like, so you wrote your girlfriend into it. No, I didn't. There's no connection between my personal life and the characters I write. Ben, that's impossible. Everyone writes their characters into it. It's like, no, I wrote this years ago.
Ben, we don't talk about the Knights of St. Louis. Shh.
You're right.
Hmm.
Uh, think of how far we will fall with DNI full immersion VR. Yep. So like at a certain point, like I need to add themes of this earlier on, but the main character has like full spectrum eyes, so he can see across like multiple band lengths beyond what we can. And so like he sees the villain like send a communication to his arch rival. Like he's hanging around the guy's head. He or she is hanging around the guy's head in a cloud of black noise while they're telling him what to do. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can really do with it. Like once you like sometimes like William Gibson, Neil Stephenson, so on, they don't really have this problem, but like some people, when you have a technology, just push it all the way. If you're saving
Yep.
people's souls on data, guess what? You can use them for things, which is why I have ghosts running around.
Well, and the other thing, and I'm sure this will be coming up, is are the downloads the same person and all that? I've tackled that in about three different short stories. Because I was always kind of like, wait, we're just assuming stuff. And so I've got three stories on that and short stories, and it comes up a little bit in Hardmoon. And so, you don't need to spoil the question for us on how it goes in your book, but I'm wondering what it'll be like when it comes up. There's a lot of ways to tackle that, and
Oh yeah.
you know,
And like the way I'm going for it is that it turns out life is fairly unchanged. It's just everyone's way overconfident and kind of like hedonistic, because it's like if human nature like won't change. One of the things I talk about in another book is that um, you sort of fill out the body you're given. So you have people who are big guys, who are more confident and nicer because they don't have that prey feeling to them. But I've met like especially women who are like kind of smaller and they don't have confidence, and maybe they had like a dad who yelled a bit, and then all of a sudden they go to the gym and it's like, what about these big guys? Oh, Kelly? Kelly's the nicest guy ever. Bosnian women love him. It works out. And Kelly's this big, like, 6 something, shoulders big enough to drive a car, comfortably, over without touching the ground, huge. And it's like, they're nice, and it's like I had to convince her for like 5 minutes that these, giants wandering around my gym have never had any intention of being mean to anyone. And it's like,
So your gym is basically the meme of buff dudes typing helpful, friendly stuff on laptops, like come to life.
yeah,
Good, good, good.
it'll have all kinds of things. Like, I'm gonna add a scene where this guy's trying to find a body for the ghost of it, Cyberghost of his father, and he has to like riddle game or something with a toy maker. It's like, okay, I need something that'll handle this job. You have woken me from my slumber, kid. Like, and he has to do it because it's an absurd premise. Like, you don't want everyone to have infinite toys, so what you got to do is you have to have some way of teaching kids how to be intelligent. And of course it'll be some sort of society that blah 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 riddle games. And so now he has to answer riddles so that he can get a body so that his ghost dad doesn't just float randomly in the internet.
Oh, I love that idea of like these ancients. They're just traveling forward in time. They just like they like suspend themselves and like it'll be different in 1,000 years. And it's not.
How's
And they just get grumpy and they're like, "Why would you waken me?" You know,
right.
just like the mythic things. I also love the idea of calling these the AI imprints ghosts. I do the same thing in Hard Moon. In this case, of course, because it's pulp noir. He's haunted by the ghost of a woman he loved,
Yep.
and so his infrastructure is literally haunted by the AI ghost of the woman he loved. It's not her. It doesn't say it's her, and that makes it worse, not better.
Right. And like, I set it up so that technology is advanced so that it is. So like that's why everyone doesn't mind it. It's enough of you to be legally considered you, and they keep you in Cyberheaven because your real body died. And it's just religious instruction until the end of time. Congratulations, you're in church school for the next several trillion years because you were an
Thank
idiot and fell, 10,000 miles down a cooling shaft, over over a space that used to hold the Andromeda galaxy. You moron.
you know, it takes a lot to have an industrial accident. It's been 5 million years since our last industrial accident. Well, that that sign's coming down.
Wow, a 5 million record. Best in the sector. It's so wait, boss, we can just turn on the machine and go after him. Yeah, but I don't want to waste the company's fuel. He'll learn his lesson.
You don't have any idea how much energy it takes to get someone out from that close to an event horizon. It ain't cheap. Time dilation alone.
How you doing there? And he gets like
Please do
spaghetti
something. His
eyes.
yellow keeps going down in frequency as he's redshifting.
Right. His infra noise is so annoying. It's like, ugh. And they like just cover the black hole energy siphon with a drape. And it's like, okay, guys. I don't have that in there, but I almost need to have that in there. At least a 5 million years since last accident. And it's a moron falling down a shaft with clear signs. But even then, like, like in the end, that sort of construction would be just done by robots and whatnot. It's almost like, yeah, it's almost entirely service based economy at this point. Like, maybe you're lucky and people like your statues, but there's still going to be like a million people who are just
Right.
going to steal a 3D model of it and then build their own.
Right.
So you're
So
always,
like they have oh, they don't have resource issues, but their drive in life is going to be for meaning in something like that.
mm-hmm,
And we know how consuming that can be. It's one of the things going on in our society here
yep,
is, we're comparatively affluent to other times and places, even though there's real suffering. But for a lot of people, they're looking for meaning. They're looking for purpose. They're looking for, something.
mm-hmm,
Um, And that's not new to humanity, but it's new to it being broad scale.
Yep.
Like your average guy who's like working the fields isn't worried about meaning or purpose. It's how am I going to get enough food for my family? But that kind of thing was what, philosophers and warriors and kings, and those would be the people that would go, what am I going to dedicate my life to? Priestmen, churches. You get the point.
Yep.
People that could look beyond the immediate concern. Now you've got a society where they're all beyond the immediate concern, and
Hmm.
they have an unlimited time frame in which to do that. I don't know. I'm very interested in seeing how the characters come out in that.
Well, it's like one of the
Because,
characters doesn't even want to take the immortality treatment, just because she'll be like, I don't know if it'll be me. Like I'm normal human. I was pulled from the cloning creatures. Why would she's like the last clone of the dude who had that war 100 years ago, where he basically took over a space the size of a nebula, and basically turned it into his own like clone factory. And it's let's see here. My Woolly Ram says my purpose is living long enough to see cat girls made real, redhead characters especially. I understand entirely. Like that's how you do it sometimes.
I want the writing phoenixes from 30 light years or less.
Oh please,
I
yes.
want a writing phoenix so bad.
I know
That book has got to get finished
it will
sometime
be
because it's
someday.
amazing.
I just want to finish Cybergothic first, just because it's one of those things where if I complete it and it's good, it'll be
Mhm.
like a massive level up for me, and then I can
I
just write
get you.
whatever.
Oh, what else? And of course, you have your crazy time traveling story at some point.
Oh,
Um,
Paradox Jones, definitely.
yes, the intro for that's coming out in Saturn, everyone.
Yeah.
So if you're wondering what Paradox Jones is, pick up Planetary Saturn and read Ben Wheeler's absolutely insane time travel story in there.
Oh yeah.
It's a sight to behold.
I gotta give you like the. I gotta give you like the first. There it is. First little bit of it.
It's so
I
good.
I hate time travel. Paradox Jones spat at the trash bag body while he frantically dug into the park's dirt. I hate it. He shoveled another load of dirt. It's messy, it hurts, it piles up bodies like cordwood. He smacked the dead body in the black trash bag. It squeaked like a chew toy. What were you trying to do, bub? Lost a job? Tried to get the girl? Dropped the steak at a barbecue? He sunk the shovel in again. Yeah, you seem the type. Then you end up stuck in a shark mascot suit and decapitated by a crazed tool store employee. See it all the time. Paradox shovel. Paradox Jones's shovel hit something. Oh no. He got to his haunches and pushed aside the dirt. He revealed a black bag, buried as deep as he planned to bury his own dead time traveler. Oh no. He ripped open the bag and found a corpse in a bulldog mascot costume. Ah, please don't be me. Please don't be me. Please don't be me. It was Paradox Jones in the suit. He leaped up to the grass and ran to a random spot, his second choice to bury the body. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. He slammed the shovel deep and dug like a man possessed. No, 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 no. He uncovered a plastic bag. He ripped it open and uncovered a body wrapped in a cartoonish Frankenstein's monster mascot costume. He pulled open the mask and stared into his own dead eyes. I hate time travel.
Remember, kids, don't try and solve all your problems with time travel.
Right?
This public service announcement
Public
brought to you
service
by
announcement.
Superversive Press.
It's like he starts getting beat by a cop just because he tried to explain causality. Like there's no point to it. Like it's time travels is just the most hilarious way of doing things. Like some people they'll take it seriously, but then it's like in reality space time travel is either a thing about morality or it's inherently absurd.
Mhm.
Let's see, where is this? Oh, I've got something. Sorry, I'm looking for another quote from this. This policewoman comes in. Look, the robbery will not be my fault. I don't know anything about it, but someone else who might be me, but with different set of life experiences does. You'll have to talk to them about it. I'm not liable for the workings of some other time traveler or me from a different section of the timeline that hasn't happened yet. If you give me a goat and a brass circle on a design I can sketch out, I could summon up my lawyer, Hieronymus Jackson.
Oh, that's a
It's,
great name.
I know, right?
Hieronymus Jackson. All right.
Clearly a demon. I have played Divine Cybermancy. It's pretty alright. I couldn't get into it as much just because it's good, but it just didn't speak to me like it does some people. Like it didn't. It wasn't exciting enough. It didn't have that je ne sais quoi. And sometimes I had no idea what I was doing, and that always puts me off video games. But I do have some ideas from that I'm going to be taking, especially with how like kind of serious everything is, but how kind of crazy everything is at the same time. That's how we that's how we do it. But like maybe I don't want 2020 to be the year of time travel, but you know what? We'll find out.
All years are the year of time travel, Ben.
You're absolutely right. And that's like it's something that's gonna be infinite. Everyone's gonna have it. Everyone will have it. Everyone has have it. I think someone limited it to you can only move forward in time travel or back based on the invention of time travel. And I don't know who this was, but it was like based on the energy of a dying sun, of our dying sun, that you could do it.
I think that was I think it was Asimov actually did that.
That's probably
And
true.
Isaac Arthur's taking another Isaac has a take on time travel and some of its limitations and all of this. But yeah, the main problem with time travel stories is causality gets all torn up.
Yep.
Um, yours deals with the absurd, takes the absurdity and madness of it head on. Another good one on this is John Wright's City Beyond Time is
Oh yeah.
fantastic. If you love a time travel yarn, and if you're patient, like yes, your favorite thing of what was it again?
Hmm?
But yeah, no, good time travel stories are rare and few and far between
Yep.
because the obvious problems with time travel are generally not addressed.
Yep.
But I like a story where they actually take, as you said, the point, the issues of it, and take it on head on, like
Hmm.
with the technology, like because everything changes everything. Think about what's going on with computer sciences. What's happened here and what it means has changed everything that we do.
Yep.
It's a holistic change. It's still us. Society hasn't changed completely. So it's like usually what you'll see in sci-fi where people will say, well, okay, this part in social society will change radically because of this thing and its one effect on society. What we usually see with new technologies is we'll see that technology has tons of applications that change almost everything, but people are still people. The same problems still affect people, all of that. You don't see, like, you could go back 1,000 years, 2,000 years actually, because the ancient world's actually much more like today than the medieval ages are.
Hmm.
Um, and you'd recognize courts and you'd recognize businesses and all the issues going on with politics, and it would all be very, very familiar. People having the same problems with family and life and all this. And yet, materially and technologically, it's vastly different.
Yep. And
So,
like we're sort of experiencing troubles right now, but there's but we're still like how do I want to put it? Like that's only because is that all other generations we couldn't talk to some dude, across the world, about how it was going. Like you couldn't just fly to another country and, live there. You'd have to, you'd have to have your own adventures, you'd be more stuck in the same area.
mhm.
And even then, that's 100 years of communication advancing before we even got to some sort of societal issues from those very advances.
I think one thing that kind of had the big effect, though it wasn't the effect everyone thought it was going to be, was all this interconnectedness with modern communications. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, everyone was like, yay, we're going to give the world a Coke and teach it how to sing. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a tiny bit of truth. Like, finding out what was going on in the world outside of the Soviet Union actually messed them up in a big way.
Yep.
Because, they knew they were miserable, but they thought everyone was like that. Um, and then the other thing that's going on, though, is yeah, there's quite a lot of outrage about people between people that didn't even know each other existed. So that's created a whole new level of potential conflict. It's
Yep.
I disagree with a lot of the philosophy of Douglas Adams, but I think he had a brilliant point when he had a hypothetical future technology where everyone everywhere could talk to everyone everywhere and really know what they really think. And he said, and then it like set off the biggest war ever. So, it's not that simple.
Yep.
Everything is not just a misunderstanding.
It's like the French and the Vietnamese, didn't hate each other until they met each other, and that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's all gonna work out though. Like one of the things that kind of gets me going in a good way is social acceleration and social envy. Yeah, something like that. That's what Willie Ram says. Is that one saying, we're gonna make it, bros. Uh, on the internet, like it's like all this bad stuff, all this pornography, all this
Mm-hmm.
violence. People live streaming suicides and all sorts of nonsense,
Oh my
of
god.
all sorts of evil.
There's a lot
And
of stuff I'm glad I haven't seen.
oh yeah,
Where I'm
and it
just like, no, I don't want to know. Yeah.
yep. And it's like I'm just throwing it out there. It's not exactly it's a lot, but it's there. But it's we're gonna make it, bros. Like and all this evil, there's still people like wholesomely encouraging each other, and
Mm-hmm.
more and more as I get older, less and less of the internet is about this evil porn and all that jazz, and it's more about um, you know how do you work out more? How do I get a girlfriend? How do I do this? How do I, be a part of a society? People
Mm-hmm.
share tradition memes. People share Christian memes. People are going out there all the time and sort of putting it out, what they are and how they, see the world in a positive manner. It's just
Yeah.
not all negativity.
Well, people can only take so much chaos and evil and madness,
Hmm.
and you'll have some kind of order and structure come. It could be good structure, it could be bad structure, but you're just this celebration of madness for madness' sake that we've seen so much of can only go so far.
Yep. Like there's this one guy where on the internet he posted something. He goes, "Just dumped my girlfriend of 2 years. Seemed all right, but then she, revealed that she had been incredibly sexually promiscuous, and I decided I didn't want any part of it." This is the guy who was talking. And
Hmm.
basically Reddit went crazy, 4chan went crazy. But what happened is that most people are like, wow, that was beyond just having one or two, boyfriends or whatever.
Hmm.
But like on Reddit, cesspool of misery and hate, several people went, "Oh, if I heard about that, I'd punch you." And people reacted with post physique. In other words, calling them a fat neckbeard without saying so directly. So in other words, not only is things accelerating in a good way, things are like I can't predict what will happen. In the 80s, it seemed almost certain that everything was going to be cyberpunk, synthwave and purple neon lights, baby, with badass trench coats and a thousand other little things.
I
But then,
know we got all the corruption and economic dystopia, and without getting like the cyberware flying cars and aesthetic.
yep.
Like we only got half of it, man.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'm wearing a sweet, leather jacket myself, but we're missing out on some of the best stuff of it. But fortunately, I've got hopes for the future. Like
Hmm.
we've still got a bunch of places. People are starting to ban porn from their entire countries and stuff like that, or at least as best they can. And I've got more hope than I've ever had before going into the new year.
I think the thing to remember, at least the perspective I've come to, with just about everything, things are in motion.
Hmm.
So the question isn't where are things now, although that's important, or where were things, and sometimes they can even be more important, but what's the direction? Where are things going? So it really at no point is anything completely static. We create certain levels of order and stasis in our laws and culture just to just fend off the madness, but things change,
Yep.
things move.
And
Um, some things will get better, some things will get worse. So,
hmm I just think that in the end, like I think we're out of the worst of the society stuff. Like we still haven't hit like rock bottom, but like not everyone's going along with the narrative, and those who aren't are speaking out more and more and more. And it's just, I think, overall more positive than it ever has been before. Because, like, in the 80s, everyone was kind of depressed, even during the Reagan years, you know, all that stuff with Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and George Bush. It just keeps going, you know what I mean?
the 80s was a weird time. It'd be hard to explain. It wasn't really depressed. It was, oh man, it was like a weird combination of cynicism and like we can do everything.
Hmm.
And it's because like we were sure we had the space station going up. We were gonna have we're gonna continue, keep going. Good times are gonna roll forever. And by the way, the world's gonna blow up tomorrow. Um, like somehow both at the same time
Right.
was the constant thought. Like we'll either have moon bases in a decade or we'll be wandering along a field of skulls as far as the eye can see. But either way, make sure you're in shape.
Right. And it's like, oh man, that'd be great. It's like part of the skull pyramid, and you get a job shining the skulls. It's like, this isn't the reality I envisioned, but at least they pay well for the job that I'm doing.
I
So,
think I'm going to log off for now. Had a good chat.
sure. I'm about
We'll
done
see if we can
anyway.
get another guest on for you here.
I'll have
Happy
a
New Year, everybody.
happy new year. See ya, David.
See ya.
I only plan to stream for an hour. Wooly Ram says, problem is I don't think we are going to transmit any lessons forward. I kind of disagree. One, memes. And two, which is like the kind of the collective unconscious communicating itself through images. And two, I think that honestly things are turning into, a sort of drive toward tradition, towards children, and towards hope, which is honestly the point of superversive press and superversive anything, really. No one will remember that we need to keep accountable, that sexual promiscuity is civilizationally destructive. I hope people will remember. It's like, like there's this joke about people wandering the wasteland. Daddy, I'm thirsty. Well, I'll look in here for some water. Looks in there, he finds gamer girl bathwater. Like, even though, um, it looks bleak now, Gen Z will be fine. I'm gonna be fine. Like all the generations, past mine, past Gen Y, are gonna be fine. Like millennials, it'll take them a while. They'll have to suffer rampant disease, and I don't think they'll have as many kids as other generations, but they'll remember. And that free money is from the devil. Absolutely right. All right. Winning the lottery destroys more than it ever blesses. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Wooly Ram, on our first live stream of the new year. Next week, I'm going to have Kursova on to talk about his future and what he's going to release in the next year. I'm always looking forward to it. Then I'm going to try for Brian Niemeyer the week after. And then I'll probably invite someone like Richard Paolini after him. Paolinelli. Anyway, have a good one. God bless everyone.